African star lore, tribal wisdom, and cosmic rhythm. It is night in the Kalahari, no town for 100 miles. No lamp, no headlight, nothing electric anywhere on the horizon. This is one of the darkest, clearest skies left on Earth. The stars do not twinkle politely here, they crowd. The pale band of the Milky Way is bright enough to cast a faint shadow on the sand. A small fire is burning, and children are sitting close in around it because the desert night is cold. An old man points up at that pale band and starts to speak. He tells them it is ash, embers thrown into the dark by a girl long ago, so that people walking at night would have a road home. He is not making it up on the spot. He heard it from someone who heard it from someone else. The chain runs back further than anybody can count. And that is the whole point of tonight. Nothing here is written down, not one word. And yet it has survived longer than most books ever written. Before we sit down by that fire, remember where this journey has taken us. Our earliest ancestors looked up and noticed that the sky repeats itself. In Mesopotamia, people began writing the sky down on wet clay, and in Babylon they used those records to work out what the sky would do next. Egypt built a whole kingdom around the heavens, and started its year with the return of one bright star. India turned the sky into mathematics, and then handed the star map to ordinary people, where it is still in daily use today. China kept watch on the heavens for thousands of years, without ever letting the watch stop. The Maya, alone on the far side of the world, counted the sky into calendars that outlived their own cities. Greece built the sky as a machine of turning spheres, and then went outside and measured it. Persia gathered all of it into one royal book of tables. Then sailors crossed the largest ocean on earth, carrying their whole sky inside their own heads. And last time, people built their calendar out of stones too heavy to ever forget. Those stones leave us with a strange, sad little fact. Stone remembers, but stone cannot speak. A circle of standing stones will show you exactly where the sun rose 5,000 years ago. It will not tell you one word of what the builders believed or sang or called that sun. Tonight we go somewhere those words survived, not carved, not written, spoken. Now, we have already met Africa once in this series, on the Nile. The Nile is one river on a continent of 10,000 peoples. Africa is not a country, and it is not one story. It is the second largest continent on Earth, with more languages in it than anywhere else. And across almost all of it, the sky was learned by heart and spoken aloud. So here is the idea for tonight. Everywhere else in our story, knowledge needed a container: clay, paper, stone, a table of numbers. Africa built the container out of people, out of stories, songs, sayings, names, and daily habits, a library with no building and no shelves. You cannot burn it down, but it does have one terrible weakness, and we will come to that at the end. Let us start in the south. The Khoisan peoples of southern Africa carry some of the oldest unbroken family lines that human beings have, and their star stories may be the oldest anyone is still telling. We met one already. The pale band across the sky is ash from a fire, thrown up by a girl, so that the night would have a road. Look at what that story is actually doing. It explains the sky, yes, but it also says something quieter. Someone went to trouble long ago so that you would not be lost tonight. There are more. Bright stars low in the south are men out hunting, and how they behave in the story is how a young hunter is told to behave. The stars are not decoration, they are where the rules live. And this is the trick that shows up right across the continent. A fact wrapped inside a story, because a story is the only thing a person will happily carry for 70 years and hand on perfectly. Nobody remembers a list. Everybody remembers a good story about an angry girl and a fire. Now go northeast to the dry grasslands where Ethiopia meets Kenya. Here we find something that is not a story at all. It is a working calendar. The Borana people keep a calendar that pairs the moon with particular stars, not the sun. The moon checked against fixed points in the sky. That matters. Near the middle of the world, the days barely change length. Summer and winter do not announce themselves. So the sun is a poor clock here, and the stars are a good one. Watching it is a job. There are specialists whose whole task is to observe, to compare, and to declare what day it is. They watch which star the young moon appears beside. Different pairings, different months, and from that, the year gets its shape. None of this is on paper. It sits in trained memory in people who were taught it by others and who will teach the ones after them. And here is the part that should stop you. It is not history. Somewhere this month, a person is standing outside at dusk, looking at the moon and a star, and telling a community what time of year it is. Now go west to the forests and farms of what is now Nigeria and the Yoruba people. Here, the sky is stitched straight into ordinary life. The word for month comes from the word for moon, and the months are counted by the moon. The week is 4 days long, and each day has its own market. So the calendar is not a thing you consult, it is a thing you are inside. What day it is tells you where the market is, what should be planted, and which ceremony is due. And the people who keep count of the moons are the same people who fix the farming festivals. Timekeeping and religion and farming are not three departments here, they are one job. Now here is one little group of stars that ties almost the whole continent together. High up in the sky there is a tiny smudge. Look straight at it and you see maybe 6 faint stars in a cluster, close together like a small handful of dust. Almost every culture on earth noticed it. What matters is what African farmers did with it. Each year the cluster is hidden for weeks in the glare of the sun. Then one morning it climbs back above the horizon just before dawn, and that morning is a starting gun. Among the Zulu, the cluster's name means the digging stars, the planting sign. Among the Hosho, the name is the same. Among the Sotho, it is the female planter. In Swahili, it comes from the word for plowing. Different languages, thousands of miles apart, and they all named that one faint smudge after farming. Because it works. That reappearance lands close to when the rains are coming and the ground is ready. Watch the sky, and you plant at the right time. Ignore it, and you might not eat. This is the sharpest answer to anyone who thinks star lore is just pretty talk. Getting this wrong costs you a harvest. So how do you actually store a whole system of knowledge with nothing written down at all? We touched this when we crossed the Pacific with the navigators, but they were storing directions. This is bigger. This is everything a people knows. The first tool is rhythm. Put knowledge into song, and the tune itself protects the words. Change one word and the song limps. You hear the mistake. The second is repetition. The same story told every year in the same season for a whole lifetime in dozens of villages at once. That is not just tradition, that is a backup system. If one teller drifts, 20 others are still saying it the old way, and the group pulls the odd one back. Many copies, constantly checked against each other. Written libraries burn all at once. This one cannot. The third tool is putting the knowledge somewhere it has to be used. Tie the star to the planting, the moon to the market, the season to the ceremony, and nobody can quietly forget it. The fourth is people whose actual profession is remembering. In parts of West Africa, there are whole families of memory specialists. History, family lines, praise songs, sayings. One of these people is a library that walks and eats and has opinions. They train for years. Their memory is not a hobby. It is the community's records office. And the last tool is that the teaching is compulsory. Becoming an adult here means sitting down and being taught the world. The stars are in that lesson. Next to law, medicine and plants, nobody grows up without the sky. So the knowledge is sung, repeated, used daily, professionally guarded and formally taught. That is not a weaker version of a library, it is a different design. Now, the famous story. And we are going to be careful with this one because it is the most misused piece of African astronomy in the world. In the cliffs of central Mali live the Dogon people. Their villages sit against a huge sandstone wall that runs for about 90 miles across the country. Houses of mud brick stacked upon the rock, little pointed grain stores with straw caps, and a rich, deep, genuinely complicated set of beliefs about how the world was made. The Dogon hold a great ceremony called the Sigui. It moves from village to village and takes years to complete. And it comes around roughly once every 60 years, so most people will see it exactly once. The Sigui is tied to the brightest star in the night sky. The same brilliant star Egypt watched for the flooding of the Nile half a continent away. In the 1930s and 40s, French researchers spent years with the Dogon. They came back with an extraordinary report. They said that Dogon spoke of a companion to that bright star, a small, invisible, extremely heavy partner circling it. Now hold on, because that bright star does have a companion. It is a dead star, a burnt-out core, invisible to the naked eye, packed so tightly that a spoonful of it would weigh as much as a car. Astronomers found it with a telescope in 1862. You cannot see it without one, you never could. So the report caused a sensation, and it launched a whole industry of books claiming the Dogon must have been told by visitors from another planet. Which brings us to the honest part. Because this is a mystery with two endings, and the boring ending is probably the true one. From the 1970s onward, other researchers went and lived with the Dogon and asked carefully. They could not find it. People knew the name of the star of the ceremony, but they disagreed among themselves about which star in the sky it even was. No general tradition of an invisible heavy companion, no shared knowledge of it at all. And there is a simpler explanation sitting right there. The idea was in the newspapers of the time. That bright star and its strange dead partner were a famous story in Europe. The researchers who went to Mali knew about it. And the conversation runs both ways. It looks very much like the detail walked into the conversation from the visitors and walked back out in their notebooks as if it had always been there. That is not a scandal. It is just how people talk. But here is the part that gets forgotten in all the excitement. Take the aliens away, and the Dogon still have something remarkable. A real ceremony on a 60-year rhythm, a real cosmology, argued over and built up for generations. A whole working account of the world, tied to the brightest star in the sky. They did not need a secret, they had a culture. That was always the treasure. And it is worth saying plainly why that story spread so fast. It quietly assumes African farmers could not have deep ideas of their own. Everything else in this episode says otherwise. So step back and ask what all this astronomy was actually for. It was not for prediction tables. Nobody here was trying to calculate where a planet would sit in 90 years. It was for timing a life, when to plant, when the rains turn, when to move the cattle, and where the grass will be, when to hold a ceremony, when a boy becomes a man, when the year turns over and starts again. The sky was the continent's clock, and it was read out loud, in public, by people whose job that was. Which finally brings us to the weakness I promised you. A library made of people dies with its people. Let one generation not be taught, and 1,000 years of watching is simply gone. There is no copy in a drawer. And the last few centuries were brutal to exactly that chain. Slavery, then colonial rule, then schooling, that treated local knowledge as an embarrassment. Languages died, teachers died, ceremonies stopped. We will never know how much was lost. That is not sad in a poetic way. It is a real hole in the human record. But it is not over. Today, there are African astronomers going out with recorders, sitting down with elders, and writing the star lore down at last. The names of the stars, the seasons they mark, the stories attached, gathered language by language before the last fluent speaker goes quiet. And under those same dark skies, enormous new telescopes are rising. Giant mirrors in the deserts of South Africa. Fields of radio dishes spreading across the country and beyond. Some of the best observing sites on the planet turn out to be exactly where the sky was already being watched carefully for thousands of years. So what did Africa add to our long story? Every people so far solved the same problem. How do you keep what the sky teaches you and hand it on? Clay tablets, paper, mathematics, stone, a ship's crew with the map in their heads. Africa answered with the human voice. Not one keeper, but a whole society keeping it together in song and story and habit and rule, checked against each other, generation after generation. It is the only library in this series that argues back, teaches children, and can be asked a question. Next time, we go far to the east, to a chain of islands at the edge of the world. There, a people met the sky a different way again. They did not invent their astronomy and they did not sing it. They imported it whole from a neighbor across the sea. And then they kept it running, faithfully, for 1,000 years.